Hello, everyone.
Hello, I'm Deshanel Sager.
I'm Regas Sager, and
And
we're
we're
Wrecked
Wrecked
and
and
Certified.
Certified.
Hey, everyone. We are so glad to be back in the
We
studio
are
again.
back.
Yeah. It is a beautiful day out, and we are so glad to be back in the BD Local Studios. And today, as always, we like to do a recap of what we covered on our last show. We talked about what does a good relationship look like from a adolescent or teenage perspective, and we had our sister house on giving us some really good information, and I thought it was really good points that they teed up with us.
Yes, I enjoyed that episode. Just learning about it, the young people in their adolescence years and learning how to build healthy relationships. And I think that's so vital
It
to
is.
learn when you're young.
Yeah, and they have I think they said it's a 10-week program that they do, and they really try to have the child express themselves, looking at it from the right lens or the right perspective about, hey, you know what are you thinking or what are you feeling about yourself? Because a lot of the teenage, because, granted, when I was growing up, I thought I was in love at 14. You know what I'm saying? I was in love. I was in. And come to find out, our sister house is helping these young adolescents really try to get a baseline and look at things from the right perspective. Because, as you know, when you're young, you're trying to fit in. You're trying to fit in with your peers. You're trying to fit in with individuals and your environment, et cetera. And sometimes you can get into some stuff that you're really not ready for. And so what they really have done is gone into various schools with their program and really helping these kids really get some tools and resources about what does a good relationship look like. But not only that, looking at the right perspective. What are you feeling? What's going on in the home? What's going on upstairs, et cetera? And they're trying to flush all that out so they don't get into really bad
And also
relationships.
building the confidence in the kids while they're young, letting them know that, getting to know who they are before they're entering a relationship and getting to know who someone else is.
Yeah, that's a really great point because I think when you're young, you don't have the life experiences to handle some of the relationship drama. Unfortunately, that comes with being with that other individual, and over time, if you're not careful, you can make some bad decisions because you're just not equipped.
Equipped.
And you don't have that baseline or that foundation. So they're really doing a really great job, our
Yeah.
sister house.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today, babe?
We talking about you. No, no, we're going to talk today. It's a very, I should put it this way. It's a very taboo subject. It's somewhat a dark subject, and a lot of people don't talk about that, but talk about this. But we're going to talk and just kind of give you, from our perspective, talking today about sex trafficking
And human
and
trafficking.
human trafficking. I was doing some research on this topic, and I was engaging with a couple folks over at our sister house, and we were doing some talking there. And they specialize in helping individuals that have gotten trapped or they've gotten caught up in this lifestyle, try to come out of it. And what we want to do is just bring some awareness because we're going to have somebody on later on next month that's going to come on and give us their story and their perspective on this very dark subject. And it's unfortunate, but there are a lot of people that are in this industry, not by let's do this, but sometimes it's involuntary, and they're forced against their will. So before we get into the conversation here about this, let's define what is sex trafficking. And I pulled this information. So basically, it's the recruitment, transportation, harboring, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, coercion for the purposes of subjugating or subjecting that person to involuntary servitude, debt, bondage, or slavery. That's a mouthful when
Yeah,
you
it
when you
is.
when you think about this. And unfortunately, dear, there are a lot of young adolescents that fall into this trap. And it's unfortunate.
It's sad. It's very sad. And one of the things that you mentioned was it's so huge to bring awareness. It's so huge to be in the know of these things and these signs with these individuals. And we want to get into it on the adolescent aspect of it first of all, and we want to let especially grandparents, parents, aunties, uncles know, pay attention to your kids and what's going on with your children, because these individuals are luring our babies, our young people. And I think it's so important to be really involved in our young people's lives and really knowing what's going on with them. And so many of these young people are coming from broken homes, young kids with low self esteem. It can be boys, it can be girls, and sex trafficking it ranges from all ages. It can be adults that are lured into this industry, or they can be kidnapped. So I don't want to just say lured, but they also can be kidnapped or
Right.
taken against their will. So
We, like I said, I was just doing some research here on this subject, and it grieved my heart to know that, like you indicated, babe, that there are young adolescents that are forced into a lifestyle, and I really believe that a lot of this is because, like you indicated, these young children are coming from broken homes. They're coming from an environment where they don't feel inclusion, they don't feel like they belong, they don't feel love, and they're reaching out for attention. And when you have that, they're susceptible and they're easy prey because these perpetrators out there, they will go in and promise them the world. Hey, I'll give you clothes, or you can live here, or you don't have to want for anything, and I'll take care of you, and leave your family, and this, that, and the other. And that seems very attractive, especially for children that are coming from an impoverished situation, or they don't have a relationship with their mom or dad, or they're in a blended family. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about on a previous podcast about parents in blended families, etc. We need to make sure that their child is put in an environment where they really feel loved, they feel included, and they feel that they're worth something. And so that way they don't get lured into somebody that is filling their ears with a lot of goop and a lot of junk, because you know what, they have a good steady home environment.
and naturally, as humans, we want to feel loved. We want to feel needed. We want to feel admired. We want to feel appreciated. And so when individuals are lacking in these areas, especially our young people, they look for outside sources. They look for
Right.
outside sources to fill those voids, to feel loved, admired, and needed, appreciated. And so when these individuals come along and they're offering all of those things to them, it looks attractive. Even though it's bad love, or that what they feel at the time, it's love.
Right, because they're
It's
looking
it's
for,
it's, it's
yeah.
a sense of
Yeah,
belonging.
they're looking for inclusion, and they're looking for that attention. Sometimes children, believe it or not, whether it's good attention or bad attention, it's attention. And
Yeah.
and as long as they're getting that, they're going to gravitate towards that. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us, as like you said, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, sisters, brothers, to really look after those young children in our sphere, in our environment, and to pay attention to what they're into, pay attention to their friends, pay attention to what they're looking at online and all this other stuff, because it could be breadcrumbs and seeds to something bigger. And if we're not careful, we can say, "Oh, they're fine. They got their own phone and they got their own Facebook or Snap or the TikTok account, and they're fine." You don't know what information that child is picking up, and if they're not, like I said earlier, they're not equipped to sometimes differentiate between right and wrong, what is real and what isn't real.
And you know what? And I'm guilty of this, and
Uh-oh.
I'm trying to get better with this. I know that as for me with my son, he'll bring me something and he'll be like, "Hey, mommy, check this out." And how many times have you done this? You put your kids off, or you be like, "Mm-hmm," or you don't really pay attention to what they're saying. Pay attention to what your kids are telling you. Be involved in what's going on in their lives. Be in the know. I mean, if you have to be, and some people, are say, "Oh, you're a helicopter parent." No, it's I'm being involved in knowing what's going on with my child. Um, you know, if he brings something to me, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, okay, let me take this even 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever it is. Be involved. Pay them attention. Be involved in, kids are online, like you said. What are you looking at? What's going on in your phone? And I do that with my son. I say, okay, phone check, homie. Let's go. Let me see the phone. I know all passwords to everything. Know those passwords. Even when it's unexpected, do those unexpected phone checks. Phone check, he pulls up what he's looking at. And I go through the history, and I have it to where, certain sites are blocked. You can make those provisions on those phones. And even they have apps where you can look into what's going on with your kids and check and be in the know. Who are their friends? Who are they hanging out with? Know those friends' backgrounds. If they can't tell you who they're hanging out with or what they're talking about or what they're being involved in, then that's when you should be aware of those things. Well, I don't think you need to hang out with those friends, or I don't think you need to be watching this, or you don't need to be involved in this. Know those things about your kids. Be involved in what's going on with them.
You brought up something about, their friends. And I know a lot of the perpetrators out there that are preying on young minds to get them into this lifestyle. What they're doing, they're using other children as the attraction point, as the entryway. So, because we tell our children, or at least when I was growing up, hey, if somebody approaches you, you don't know
If an
they're
adult.
an adult, you shy them off and you go somewhere, or you blah 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 blah. Now what they're doing, they've gotten savvy. Since they can't use that approach in many cases, they're using a friend of a friend that knows their susceptibilities, or they know that they're vulnerable to certain things, or they know their disposition or what they like, that other child. So that other child uses their
vice.
influence or that vice to get them into that lifestyle. Oh yeah, I'm hanging out with, blah, 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 blah. Come on over with me and we're going to have some fun doing this, that, and the other. And essentially what they're doing in so many respects, they are luring them in and getting them to come along with whatever they're into. And so that's why you said, and I think it's so important, know who your child is hanging with, because that other child may be into some other stuff, and then your child gets caught up into it, and then all of a sudden you got a situation on your hands.
Yeah, listen to your child's conversations. What are they talking about? I mean, you stand outside the door in their room and they're talking to their friends. Pay attention to those conversations, because if the conversation sounds suspicious, then you may need to do some investigation on that. So.
Yeah, exactly. And so to your point, all of this, you guys may be, thinking to yourselves like, well, how does this all, relate to sex trafficking? Sex trafficking is, we said it so many different times, is a lure, and it's an attraction. And so kids at this age, they're very impressionable. And if we're not careful, these things that are out there will attract them. They may not get it the way we know it. They'll get it through like, oh, it's just a friend, and oh, it's no big deal. We're just going over to Fred's house or Susie's house and we're just hanging out. And then all of a sudden they're into pornography, or all of a sudden they're into all of this crazy stuff. And then you start to lose that child's attention, and they start drifting into other things because you didn't stop it at the root. You didn't know the friend. You didn't know what they're listening to. You didn't know what they're viewing online. You just letting them go rogue. you know what? As parents, it's incumbent upon us to be the keepers of the keys.
Yep.
Not let the door just swing wide open, but the keeper of the keys and say, you know what, I'm doing this for your good. And I know we live in a very pluralistic society where everything kind of goes and, oh, my child should have its rights. I mean, granted, you go to the doctor now with your child and your child can sign at the age of 11 or 12 or 14.
Crazy.
And they're giving them all of these rights. Nothing wrong with that. But if you care about your child, you're going to put some limitations and some boundaries around what they can and cannot do.
Exactly. You opened up a whole can of worms. With
Oh
that.
man, I'm so sorry.
It's society, and also it goes back to social media. It's making it attractive. It's making it inviting. There's different avenues where they have things that are called Backpage.
Backpage.com. Yeah.
Backpage.com that, they have these ways to advertise to individuals where it doesn't seem like it's sex trafficking, and they put a high dollar amount on it and lure you in and make it seem like it's a job. Oh, I got a job doing this, that, and the other. No, that's not the type of work you want to be doing. So, but like you said, they make it inviting. They make it enticing.
And I know, if you go to backpage.com, there's hundreds of thousands of sites out there. Backpage, I think it's been seized, but that was an early site. And what they would do, they would take pictures and they would post them. And then the clients would go in there and look at whatever girl, boy they're interested in. And then they would make their bid to get that child for sex trafficking. And like I said, subjugating that person to involuntary servitude. And the only one that wins in this situation is the perpetrator. They're getting all the financial benefits. They take these children from their environments. They brainwash them to believe that this pimp loves them. And then all of a sudden they're in this lifestyle that basically if they're not careful, they will ruin that individual for life. And that's why we're having this conversation because believe it or not, there's 14,000 to 17,000 people that are trafficked into the United States on a annualized basis. And I know in Pierce County here, they have a specific unit just for this particular, crime. And a lot of people don't know this, but sex trafficking is the second largest or the second fastest growing crime in America. The second fastest growing crime in America. It'd be easy for me to get up here and we could talk about our goals. We could talk about money. We could talk about businesses. We can talk about all these different things. But we're talking about something that is protecting the most innocent minds and protecting our future. And these people, for financial gain, the internet this thing has exploded because of the internet. And it's making it, like you said, babe, so attractive and so alluring and so tantalizing. They could just throw it up on a site on the dark web, and then all of a sudden you get your child introduced to this, and they're in a whole different trajectory.
And you think about it, and it's all for money.
All for money.
Greed. They're taking these innocent people and they're exploiting them. They're taking these innocent people away from their families and they're drugging them. They take them and they introduce them to drug, alcohol, all of these different lifestyles, labor, and just ruining their lives. They have no lives after that. Not that they can't have life after that, because I believe even when these individuals get involved, there is help.
Yes, there is help.
These individuals fear the people that take them from their homes, their lives. And I know that it's also in third world countries. We speak about the United States, but sometimes there's language barriers where they're taken from the United States and taken into other countries. And so these individuals don't know how to get back to their homes. There's a language barrier. The individuals put fear into them.
Mm-hmm.
The individuals fear that they don't want to tell the authorities because
Isolation.
they're isolated
Yeah.
and they don't know how to get help from the authorities, or they even fear even telling the authorities because they don't know what's going to happen to them or the individual that's taken them. So it's just so sad and heartbreaking.
It really is. And, I look at this. They were saying that the human trafficking cases are very complex to prosecute. And it's because the victims are afraid. They're afraid of the perpetrator, of the pimp, and it makes them reluctant to move forward and to go through that legal process because they're like, well, gee, if I can't get back to my family and I'm out here on the limb, that's all I know. And so they play in the game and they play in the sandbox of isolation because it's like, hey, I'm all you got. So when you get out there on the street, I'm your protection. I'm gonna put a little money in your pocket. I'm gonna give you a little roof over your head. I'm gonna buy you whatever. But at the end of the day, they brainwash these children to believe that that is the only line
Means of life.
means of life that they have. And that's why we were talking about earlier about parents. What are your children into? Who are they hanging around? What are they watching? What are they listening? I mean, all of this other stuff, because what we want to do is bring awareness, because once they get out in that lifestyle, sometimes those children never make it back. I remember back in the day, it was in the 80s and 90s, you go in the store and you turn around the milk carton and Susie Q and Jimmy J, they'd be on the back there and they'd be missing for months or even years or years
Or never
upon years or
found.
never found. And that's why it's so important, parents, and those of us that have a relationship with, the young people, the adolescents in our circle, is that we have to be aware of what's going on, because these people on the other side, they don't care. They're doing it for profit. And if it means your child for profit and they can get to your child for profit, hey, it's all good.
And I want to say this as a parent: speak life into your child, speak blessings over your children. Tell your child they're beautiful, they're pretty, they're handsome,
They're smart.
they're intelligent, they can be successful. All of those things. Speak life into them. We need to do more of that with our young people, is to speak those things that are going to encourage them. Speak those things that are going to build them up. Speak those things that are going to build their character and help them to be confident and to have good character. But also, don't be naive and say, that would never be my child.
Oh, you know what? That's a perfect segue, because we had a friend of
Our
the
family.
family, and she was struggling in school, trying to fit in.
She's trying to find
She's
herself.
trying to find herself, adolescent, and she had caught up with some individuals, and it was through another adolescent that was reeling her in, and she had befriended this individual, and they had formed a friendship,
bond.
a bond, and this other individual, a friend of hers, had got her into some unsavory stuff, and she had went missing for about 3 days and couldn't find her. She had left her cell phone at home, and she just walked out with some flip-flops and some clothes on and gone. And so they were trying to figure out, okay, where can we get some access points to, in her life, friends and other individuals. What was the last known site she was on, checking her phone, doing all this other stuff. But hence how the story progressed. They ended up finding her in Seattle, drugged up, makeup up, with a mini skirt on, halter top, and she had been violated. When they took her to the ER room, they found several. It was more than several. I think it was like
Multiple.
it was more than multiple. It was like 7 to 8 different, semen in her. And but by the grace of God, they found her because they had drugged her up to the point where she was out of her mind. And this grieved and it vexed our hearts, and that's why we wanted to bring awareness to this and have our sister house on, and we'll have some other individuals on down the road to talk about this scourge, this on society that is creating, and it's creating a whiplash among our adolescents. And yes, I know that in Hollywood and on TV, money, sex, and drugs and violence sell. But all of that was perpetrated on her within that 72-hour window. Not only was she violated sexually, but she was abused mentally, all for the transaction of money. And I look at this, and like I said, it grieved my heart, and my wife and I wanted to engage with other organizations and talk about these things. And just like you said, babe, don't ever say, oh, that'll never happen to my child. Oh, that'll never happen to me. By you just taking that stance, it's an arrogant position. It's an arrogant point of view for us to believe that we're insulated from things like this because it's happening across the way or it happened to someone else's child. You better be vigilant and diligent. You better be on your P's and Q's in reference to your children, because in this society where it's all about gain,
It's all about gain.
and when you got the wrong person out there perpetrating and trying to take children from families, children from environments for their own personal gain, we're in a bad situation. And that's why we wanted to bring this awareness to the listeners.
And like we said, awareness is the key. Awareness, awareness, awareness. These are the things that we need to be talking about in our churches. These are the things that we need to be talking about in our schools. These are the things that we need to be talking about in our homes, amongst ourselves, letting people know, having these tough and hard conversations with our kids so they can be aware of what they're going to be facing and what they could face in their lives. So that's why we're here talking about this today. I mean, when you told that story, now I know the story, but when you told the story about our family friend, like tears started to well up in my eyes just to think it could be your child. It could be our child. It could be your next door neighbor. So let's do what we can to make this subject aware in our communities.
Right. Let us go forward with the fortitude to really pay attention to the children in our lives. They may not be your child.
And adults.
And adults too. Because there's a lot of people suffering out there in silence, and they've gotten into this bad situation, whatever. But there's hope and there's help. If you know a child that is struggling, call our sister house. Call the prevention groups out there. There are a plethora out there. Let's not suffer in silence, and let's not say that's their business. No, it's all of our business, because you know what? Our children, what are our future? And if we sit by idly and we're just on our hustle and on our grind, and we don't care about anybody else about getting ours, what a society. What an environment we're setting up for the future. And, and in closing, as we close down this podcast today, and like I said, this is not an easy topic to talk about. Because like I said, it would just be easier to come in here and talk about something fun and doing something this and, bridging for the future, whatever. But there are children out there.
Well, we got to talk about our young ones who are the future.
Yeah, exactly. We have to do that. And we have to bring awareness to these topics that are swept under the carpet. They're just kind of, put that in a corner. Let's not talk about those things, etc. Because you know what? I've been through some things. Y'all been through some things, etc. And when you don't talk about it, you can't help someone else that may be facing the same thing or similar things. So, and like I said, we're going to be bringing on other individuals in the future to talk about this subject. We're not going to let this thing rest. We're not going to let this thing die. I hope that you would share this with other individuals because we believe that this is so important because our children are at risk because there are perpetrators out there that are trying to seize upon them and use them for their gain. So with that being said, I'm going to pivot here. We're going to talk about some other things coming down the track. If you are in the area today, in the Alderwood area, go by and check out the Melanated Market.
Yes, the Melanated Market is at the Alderwood Mall Saturday today and tomorrow. So we'll be there from 11 to 8 p.m. today, and tomorrow we'll be there from 12 to 6. So come check out the Melanated Market. A lot of amazing vendors. Check us out.
Yeah, and I believe it's going to be a great weekend for you to take the road trip if you're down on the south end. But go support them. You know, they're doing a good thing, and they're trying to help these small to medium-sized businesses gain a platform so they can showcase their product and services. With that being said, like I said, we want to give a big shout-out to the BD Local Studios.
Yes,
As always,
thank you.
they're great people, and we just so much appreciate them for allowing us to come in and share our few little,
Our little nuggets.
our little nuggets from here and there. So with that being said, we
We
are
are RET and
certified.
certified.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.